Welcome back to the Everyday Armor podcast. I'm so excited to be doing this again because I feel like I actually get to talk to you guys and be a person and do a little bit more than just safety and self-defense and engage with you past the classes or past social media. But I took a little bit of a break because I moved from Texas to Las Vegas and it was just so much moving and so many things to keep up with. But now I have such an amazing team to help with these sorts of projects. So we're going to be getting started on basically just another run of the podcast. And we have a lot of exciting things coming up. I want to take a second just for anybody who's new or maybe just as a refresher, just a little bit about me and Everyday Armor. And then I'll kind of explain a little bit about just really kind of how I got passionate about what I do. And from there, I'll kind of explain a little bit more about what you can expect to see in the podcast, because we do have some new stuff and some things that we're trying to kind of build upon. So I'll explain a little bit more soon. But just as a little background, my name is Kailee and I started Everyday Armor about 6-7 years ago in 2019. And it really just kind of started as something that I felt kind of compelled to do. I started just posting safety and self-defense. I saw so many myths that get perpetuated online, especially when it comes to things like trafficking, kidnapping, a lot of the bigger things that we tend to be afraid of. And it genuinely just made me so angry. So I started really diving in, doing extra research from what I already knew, and then posting those things and trying to really actually inform people about what we're actually at risk for, what we're not, what are urban legends that we tend to hear, and all that kind of stuff. And I went to school at Chapman University. I'm from Washington State originally, went to school at Chapman University. That's where I graduated. I was in Delta Gamma there. And then it was pretty much right after I graduated. And actually, I think I was still in college when I started posting. And I don't know, I didn't really have a direction for exactly what I wanted Everyday Armor to turn into. I mean, honestly, when I first started, the colors were bright orange and bright blue, which is so different from what it is now with pink and purple, which is so much more on brand with who I am. And I wanted the business to reflect that. And I'll kind of explain a little bit why here in a second. But yeah, I basically just started doing the posting. And then from there, it, like I said, it morphed into what it is. And I wanted to create a type of self-defense that, first of all, touched on all of the myths that we tend to hear, but also that was different from other programs, because I really saw a need for safety and self-defense in a way that just made more sense for college students. And as a college student myself, I looked around me and was even with the knowledge that I did have and the physical training I had, it just felt like there was a lot missing, and a lot of the tips out there were just not landing, or they kind of ended the conversation. Don't walk alone at night. But how many times do you have to walk alone at night? Not just even as a college student, but just as a young woman. I still walk alone at night all the time. If you go run errands, there was a lot of those kinds of tips that just didn't make sense to me. So I created something that really addressed mental self-defense, situational self-defense, and physical self-defense. That's kind of what we call them. Mental self-defense looks at relationships and, again, common myths, how people infiltrate and gain trust, how to sense intention, deal with confrontation, all that type of stuff. Situational self-defense is more of your day-to-day safety tips, tactical items, that kind of thing, and just educating yourself on general situations where maybe you feel anxious or unsafe. Then, of course, there is a physical component, but this was another thing where I saw some of these demos online and it was super advanced. And for me, so I am a 2nd degree level 3 black belt in Taekwondo with some experience in Muay Thai, kickboxing, and Jiu-Jitsu. And I became a certified instructor at my studio, and I actually helped open a studio as one of the head instructors in Mill Creek, Washington for my martial arts school. And when I would see some of these movements, self-defense escapes and stuff online, it was who's going to be able to actually replicate these from, first of all, watching a video, and second of all, even just in one class. And yes, it does obviously educate you. It teaches you to use your body in new ways, how to get out of things, education you didn't have before. But the reality is, if you're only practicing it in that one class, if you're in a real fight or flight situation and somebody comes up and grabs you and you're panicking, it's going to be really hard to remember those advanced movements. So with the physical self-defense that Everyday Armor teaches, yeah, we do some of that advanced stuff and some fun little escapes and movements, but we also really wanted to focus on just what are general things for somebody who has no training, and basically become the gap for people that have zero training and then somebody who's going to go get years and years of experience and build muscle memory over time. So that's kind of how we view ourselves. And I always tell people, go take regular classes. Like, I travel all across the US teaching the self-defense and safety classes to college students, and obviously posting online as well. But go take the classes in person. Don't just stop at this one class, but I hope my classes inspire people, first of all, to think more critically about some of the tips out there, the things they see online, know about myths, and just kind of general information on how to protect yourself and how to approach like tactical items. But if you want more of that physical training and to really feel confident that you could replicate, again, more advanced moves, if you were in a situation where somebody came up and like grabbed you in a bear hug, go take the in-person consistent classes. So that's kind of, how I view everyday armor. And my biggest goal is to make it so it's not just something where, we travel teaching self-defense and safety to college students, but where it's also just like a community of women that want to be independent, that want to feel more confident, and that want to think critically about things, and also empower each other. And I know that sounds like super corny, and there's the whole like girl thing that goes around, but like, I really want to create a community of people who, first of all, can, like, to me, being a girl's girl, that whole term, I could do a whole episode on that, just bothers me because I think that it's so overused and misunderstood. Where, in my opinion, I feel like a girl's girl is somebody, like with my girlfriends, I want you to call me out when I've wronged you, or when you think I'm doing something wrong or overreacting or spiraling about something, like, call me out. But like, in public, have my back. Or if you need to vent about me, don't do it to a bunch of like mutual friends. But I don't think being a girl's girl means just always defending women at all and any cost. I think it means being willing to call people out. And that's the kind of people I want to create a community for, where we always want to get better. We're open to criticism and knowing that we're not perfect. And I don't know, I think that that's kind of lacking nowadays, where people can't think critically. They can't be encouraged to grow and think differently about stuff. So that's kind of what the goal is. And with that, I want to talk about pop culture, because that does relate so much to mental self-defense, with even just like Love Island. I mean, I could do hours upon hours of podcasting about Love Island, but I want to get into that kind of stuff. I think it's relevant. I think it makes sense. And they're real world examples, kind of. I mean, it's like a social experiment, but kind of real world examples of these different things that we talk about. And just giving basic life tips, like having fun, like how to go out and travel or still go drink, but do it a little more safe. And again, just making everything realistic. That's what Everyday Armor is for, the realistic safety and self-defense for those who don't have much training or any training at all. So enough about kind of what it is and like where I see Everyday Armor going. I do want to explain a little bit about why I'm passionate about this and just a little bit more about me. So first and foremost, I'm from a very small town in Washington State. And I remember going to high school, and I always knew that I wanted to get out and explore more. I wanted to have a really full life and get to experience things. But because of some things when I was growing up, I didn't really realize it, but I didn't really have my own brain. It was hard for me to make my own choices and decisions. I felt a lot of pressure growing up. And just because of some different things in my childhood and my teenage years, I had a really hard time being independent. And I thought that I was. When I first went off to college, I was like, I'm so independent. Like, I'm out here states away from my family doing my own thing. But the more I went through college and the more I faced different problems or things I didn't understand or miscommunications or just living with new people. First of all, I went from a tiny town to Chapman University, which is like a private school. So I was exposed to people from wealth that I didn't understand and hadn't seen before. And that was, an adjustment in and of itself. But I think I really realized I had such an inability to make my own choices without the validation of other people. I didn't really know myself. I was also in a relationship most of high school that was extremely unhealthy. And I felt like my identity was wrapped up in that person. So going off and really drinking for like the first time ever, being known, which is so funny because I was crazy. Like I would drink in any type of setting. Like like sign me up. I'm there 5, 6, 7 days a week down, which was funny because I like never drank in high school until my senior year. And even then, like it was few and far between. But, there were just so many new things. And I was trying to figure out who I was, what I believed in, what I stood for. And ironically, I feel like the more I learned about myself, the more I realized that with so many different things, I saw so many different perspectives and ways to look at things and ways to approach different situations in my personal life. But I went through a lot of growth. And I feel like honestly, until like the last couple of years, I haven't fully finished the growth of becoming mentally independent and trusting myself to make choices and not having to turn to 5 different people to get their opinion on things. So that was a really big struggle for me. And I think when I found that independence and have been able to make choices myself, which sounds crazy, but it made me realize how much I want to teach other people to do that. Because I think when you can research things or yourself and think critically and make your own choices, and for better or for worse sometimes, but you just feel so much more free. And I think that we need more of that. And I think especially nowadays, and I'm sure many people can attest to this, just look at the algorithms on our phones, right? And again, this is something that's like so over talked about, but like it literally just serves you the same opinions you have. So you're so infrequently exposed to other opinions or ways to think about things going on. And I think that mob mentality is so scary. And I think we need to learn how to think critically, how to be nuanced about different situations, and not just with safety, but in our personal lives too. And again, I think that's a big reason of why I do what I do. And then when it comes to more of like the actual physical safety side, I'd had a run in college, and that for me was so jarring because I'd had the training, like I did all the physical training, and I realized there was stuff that I didn't have, like tools that I did not have in my toolbox that landed me in a really scary position. And after that, I was like, okay, I first of all need to take a step back from my life. It was so summer after my junior year, just to give you a little overview. Summer after my junior year, I had the opportunity to basically go be a nanny in Cabo. So I literally bought the ticket, didn't do much research, didn't think much about it. This was how I was in college. I mean, some days like I'd get overwhelmed and I'd literally just go book a hotel and drive down to San Diego. Like I just did crazy shit. So this was another one of those things. And I signed myself up, buy the ticket, and I show up. I'm like, fuck it, let's see what happens, right? So my host mom picks me up, and I'm like really quickly realizing, okay, they speak German and Spanish. And I thought I knew Spanish, but also when you're learning it in a classroom setting versus when you're immersed into a different culture, and there's different like terminology or different ways they say things that like it wasn't how I had learned it. It was so different. And then German, I knew nothing of. So it was such a new experience for me. And I did feel alone at times. I mean, I was there for almost 3 months, and it was hard because when you don't necessarily speak the same first language as somebody, sometimes it's hard to communicate emotion, where you can kind of communicate like concepts. But for me, like when I'm speaking in Spanish, I'm not super comfortable with the language. It's hard for me to communicate like emotion behind things. I'm just trying to focus on like getting the words out. So, it was hard for me to feel like I was like super connected, and just being with kids. I mean, great birth control, because it was so exhausting and not for me. But that was my whole summer. I mean, the kids were so cute and they were great. It's a me thing. But, I think that I was trying to figure myself out. I was having a hard time in my personal life and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I was headed into senior year. I was kind of coming out of some friendships that just like weren't serving me at the time, and a lot of kind of that like toxic shit talking that I was also a part of and like for sure guilty of. And I was just trying to kind of better myself and like grow a little bit and again figure out what the fuck I wanted to do with my career. So in Mexico, while I was going through all of that, I was so mentally and emotionally unequipped for the situation. I didn't do any research. I didn't think about maybe needing a community or friends or any of that. So on the weekends, I was just trying to blow off steam and go out, and I would end up drinking and partying. There was one weekend I literally ended up at this bachelor party. There were like substances. I mean, like it was insane. And I was like, it was me and this other girl that I like kind of knew, not really. And yeah, we ended up in Pettigrew, this like crazy house with this whole bachelor party. I mean, it was just random crazy stuff. And then one night we had gone out. This was one of like my last nights there. And actually, rewind, there was one night. And when I tell the story, sometimes like I'll just consolidate the 2 nights because it was like the same thing, different nights. But one night I had gone out with some friends, and truthfully, I got super drunk and they left, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I ended up going back with this group of people that I had met, and I went to their resort. They came and I got let in. We walked to their room, and somewhere along the way, my ID and all of my credit cards were lost. So I didn't have an ID. I didn't have credit cards. All I had was like cash. I don't think we had Apple Pay back then. But I had cash and I had my passport for my ID. So that happens. And I tried to find it, couldn't find it anywhere, was already like embarrassed. Also before that, I had gone out to this other resort for a weekend, and I like went to stand up and get out of this pool, and we'd been drinking, but like I really actually like wasn't drunk. I just really did step in the wrong spot, but I like fell. It was like an infinity pool, and my foot got caught in this like little gap, but like my knee caught my fall. Like my knee didn't fit through the little gap, and my leg, when I tell you, it was bruised from my knee down to like my ankle. It was gnarly, like the craziest bruise. Like I was wondering if I was going to lose my leg. It was really bad. And I think I have pictures of it. I'll have to post them sometime. But so that had also happened this trip. So I was just a fucking mess. This last weekend, one of my friends that I met, she was like, okay, let's get you out of the house. It's like your last weekend. Let's go have fun. Because I was venting. I was so tired, exhausted. We had a birthday party at the house for one of the little boys. And it was on a Saturday. So I was just so tired. We go out, and I grabbed my bag, and it had like everything in it. It had cash. It had my passport, my phone, makeup, everything. So we go out, and I have my passport because that's what I had to use for identification when we went out. So we end up going out to the bars. Next thing you know, we're hammered. We end up meeting this girl and like 2 other guys. Well, the friend that I came with, she ended up leaving. So I was with this new girl and then 2 guys that were together traveling. And all 3 of them, I believe, were staying at the same resort. So at the end of the night, we all try to go back to the resort, and we get there and they're like, I'm so sorry. Like you can't stay here. You're not on the list or whatever. So I have this bright idea. We're like, let's go to the beach. So me and one of the guys end up going to the beach. And next thing you know, it's like probably 3 o'clock, if not later in the morning. And we end up sitting down on the beach. We both completely pass out in the middle of the night. I'm wearing like my bag that has all of my stuff. And someone came up in the middle of the night and cut my bag off of my body. And I woke up in the morning and I looked down, and there's like just the strap of my bag. And at first I was like, did my bag fall off? Like I was also hungover. I was like, I can't believe I just slept on a beach. All fucked up. So we start like scavenging the beach, looking for my bag. Can't find it. And that had, again, my phone, passport, cash, like $300 cash, I think, like a lot of stuff. So we end up, the guy that I was with taxis me back to my host family's house, and I get on my computer. I'm like, I can't even tell my parents what happened. I just needed to like shower. I just felt so dirty and like, So I messaged my parents, and my mom was like, you're fucking kidding. And basically was like, well, this is not the first time you've had I literally, like, before I even went to Mexico, I locked myself out of my car multiple times. Like, I was just a total wreck my junior year. So at this point, I was like, what am I going to do? So long story short, I end up having to tell my host family. I end up having to book a flight from Cabo to Tijuana where I could get an emergency passport because the consulate didn't have somebody like signed off on them for 2 weeks past when I was supposed to go home. So I got the ticket to Tijuana. I get to the airport. I'm like ready to go in there, fly myself to Tijuana. I was going to spend the night there, wake up in the morning, go to the embassy, get an emergency passport, and then walk across the border into San Diego and be picked up from San Diego to get to Orange County. I get to the airport, realize that I don't have enough pesos to check my bags. So the guy was like, well, if you want to make this flight, you have to be back here in 25 minutes. The international terminal is next door if you want to try to make your original flight home. So me with zero form of identification, not a single credit card, just a wreck, no phone. I go to the international terminal. I end up having to have this like 15-minute call with border control, and they asked me crazy questions. I mean, some of them I didn't even know the answer to. Like, I think one of them was like, what something like financial institution for like some kind of like loan. I was like, I have no idea. But I got through, and I actually had printed out a picture of my expired license. So that's the document I traveled with. And I ended up getting back to the US and was like, holy shit. How did I get in that position when my whole life I've learned about safety and self-defense and protecting yourself? And I got my degree in psychology. I thought I had all the tools. And that's what really prompted me to look at like physical safety so different, because I was so much more willing to put myself in these really vulnerable positions and jeopardize my safety, because I was so all over the place mentally that came out in the situations I found myself in. I was like, let's just do whatever. Let's get fucked up. And yes, I was having fun, but at the same time, I was not being safe. I mean, that situation could have turned out so much worse. Like, my bag was hanging off my body. Someone comes up and cuts it. But what if I was by myself? Somebody could have grabbed me. You just never know how that story could have ended. And I think that was a huge wake-up call for me. And I actually stopped drinking for, I think it was 99 days. I had just missed 100. But it was funny because when I stopped drinking, I actually got a lot of shit from some people that I consider to be my closest friends. I remember I actually walked in on some people that I, again, consider my closest friends, talking shit about me because of the lifestyle changes I was making. Not even, and they also doubted the story. And I had, screenshots to prove things. I didn't come back with a phone and ID or credit cards, or my bag. So I think it was just a huge wake up call for me going into senior year of, first of all, safety and self-defense is so much more intricate than what we talk about and the information that's commonly given to college students. But it also really showed me that who you surround yourself with really matters. And some people that actually, my closest friend that's been that literally pushed me to start this business. I had kind of distanced myself from her junior year because I was making a ton of crazy decisions and going out all the time around people that didn't always make me feel the best. And I knew that she saw that. I knew she was smarter than that. And I knew she was a better friend than to let me do those things without saying something. So I just distanced myself. And ironically, that was the person who really came back and supported me, was there for me, believed me, and helped me. And I think that who you surround yourself with and where you're at mentally and emotionally is so critical to your physical safety. And again, it's not talked about enough, and it's not talked about in a way that also gives people grace and room to grow and room to learn about themselves. And that's why I wanted to create what we call mental self-defense, situational self-defense. If everybody goes through tough times. And if you're in one of those tough times and, maybe, I hope you never find yourself drunk on a beach, passed out in the middle of the night. But, if you do, what can I do in that situation to just keep myself a little safer? Layers of safety. And then, of course, the physical stuff. So those, I think, my lack of mental and emotional independence and realizing that safety was so much more than just punches and kicks and, technique. I really wanted to create a program, and again, a safe space and community for people who want to grow, who want to be independent, and not independent in the way of I don't need help from other people, but independent in the way of I know who I am, good and bad, and my weaknesses and my strengths, and I'm here to have the people closest to me call me on things, but I know who I am, and I feel good about that. And when you can do that, it helps you be a better friend, be better in your career, be a better partner. And I just think that it's something that's not talked about enough, or there's not like spaces for people who are more independent. So that's kind of where it comes from. And again, I have all the same interests. I love reality TV. I love being outdoors. I love anything new that challenges me. I'm so passionate about travel. I've actually traveled to, I think, 46 states now, 42, I want to say, of which I've traveled completely by myself for these classes. And now I'm so excited because I also have hired on new instructors that will be able to teach classes in like their local areas. So Everyday Armor is expanding not just in people, but also in our reach. I love, again, pop culture. That relates back so much so to mental self-defense. And it's interesting talking about just anything like financial tips that helps with independence. Shit, being able to put some fucking air in your tire, actually changing a battery in your car. I just posted a video about that recently. But all those little things that just help you feel more self-sufficient, help you have more belief in yourself. And that's really what the space is for: dating, relationships, psychology, travel, all of it. So that's what you can find in this podcast. I'm going to be having friends on, experts, just hopefully like family members, anything. If you want to be on the podcast, if you have a story to share, if you want advice on something, we have a submission in the show notes. And I really would love for you to comment things you want to see, ask questions. Again, let us know if there's a story that you want to share in the podcast. So I just want this, again, to be the space where we create that community of independent people where we can also think different about things and like still get along and still be okay with each other. So I'm super excited for this. And again, I'm like so grateful for the help I have with this podcast. And I'm excited to see where it goes. So thank you guys for joining me on this first episode here. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, there is a link in the show notes for you to submit those. And coming up here, we are going to have some Love Island talk. We are going to talk about just like partying in college and what that looks like at like private school versus a big school, what like sorority life looks like. We'll talk about dating, some dating stories that I have. When I tell you I have some of the craziest dating stories, one time, just to give you a little idea. First of all, I've gone on a night hike with somebody, which was psychotic on a first date. And this was like, I think shortly after COVID, so things were closed, like a lot of stuff. I definitely invited somebody to come to my house or apartment for a first date. And turns out he was a convicted felon. So that was cool. But yeah, we'll talk about all those things. And I have just, a lot of the life lessons I learned the hard way. And I'm kind of grateful for it because I feel like not only do I have fun stories to tell, but I have a lot of real life experience that not only makes me passionate about these things, but helps me understand, especially like if you are or in your early 20s or, just going into college and trying to find your way. Like, it is okay to be imperfect. I've dabbled in a lot of different things, a lot of things I probably shouldn't have. I've had my fun and I still have fun. I live in Vegas. Like, I still have fun. But it's just, again, learning how to be mentally and emotionally independent and feeling confident in yourself and feeling like you can approach day-to-day life without anxiety or fear. Or if you don't have the anxiety or fear, maybe being able to implement some, safety habits so we can just go out and do the shit we should be able to and have fun in life without having to fear for our safety, whether that's in relationships, in friendships, or like physically. So again, I appreciate you guys tuning in for this first episode. I'm so excited for the things to come. So stick around and let us know if there's anything that you want to see.